So if you're listening to this and you're in your 40s and 50s, have the conversation. What's the benchmark? What's the mile marker we're trying to hit? It's retirement at this age. We could spend this much. Let's get a little more creative as well and say, hey, maybe gifting is important to me. So why are we not incorporating that now into our financial plan?
Hey, Nick.
Scott, good to see you. How you doing?
I'm good, man. How about yourself?
Doing well. Ready for a birthday weekend coming up. So got some plans. Pretty excited.
Awesome. Yeah, I get to jaunt off to Hawaii to go teach some advisors how to listen. So I'm excited about that.
Ooh, the nerd in me says maybe I want that for my birthday next year. I like that. Hawaii and some education. Not too bad.
Yeah, come with.
Yeah.
For today, we were just briefly, geeking out as we normally do.
Yeah.
And, one of the topics that'll come up for us often with clients, a lot of clients have more than they need in their lifetimes.
Mhm.
And so the traditional approach is, well, just keep what you have until you pass away and then, share it with everyone else at the end. And we've both been fans of some work that there was a book written a little while ago called Die with Zero. And there's a few other things. So we kind of want to take that idea of, is it better to give while you're dead or alive?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I always look at it from the standpoint of who are you giving to? How much are you giving? What are your desires? I mean, there's so many different ways that you could take this.
Totally.
Right. And
Yeah.
that was kind of a novel idea when that book came out. I'm sure, right? Bill Perkins, author of Die with Zero, wasn't the first person to have this idea, right? Nothing new under the sun.
Right.
But I feel like that book really caught fire, especially amongst advisors and retirees, of just taking something so traditional for such a long time that was, here's whatever's left, that's what the kids, that's what the charities, churches, the endowment, that's what you get. And we really only have this conversation of gifting from like a tax standpoint, where it's like trying to help today, and we can get into the weeds on like estate limits and lifetime exemptions and those type of things. That's really the curriculum for advisors for so many years of like when you insert yourself into those conversations. But what this book did was saying, what if we're looking at this the wrong way, from the wrong angle? And what if there was actually more of an impact by giving to the people that you love or the charities and causes today, not only for you, but also for them?
Absolutely. And I think another thing to think about there, I kind of harken back to like thinking about growing up in my childhood.
Yeah.
In the 80s, it's like people would pass away in their 60s, in their early 70s, right? Now we're having folks passing away in their 90s. And when I say people still are going to have enough money, I'm saying when we're planned into their 90s, they're going to have plenty of money. And a lot of times it comes down to like, do you want to be helping society more sooner? Do you want to be helping your family sooner rather than waiting until your kids or your grandkids are in their 70s or 50s before you're helping them? So it's kind of just allowing yourself that lens. I think there's a framework that you can think through for this that we can kind of touch on today. And that's kind of like, one would just be looking at like, who would you want to be helping? And when would you want to see that impact? Do you want to see it now or do you want to see it later? Right? If I want to give a big endowment fund, I probably want to do that later so I can let my assets grow and give a big number. But if I want to be helping today, to help people sooner is better, right? And then, of course, you already mentioned the tax angle. We can chat about that a little bit more. What can we do there? Taxes may not be a part of it, though, directly, meaning we may not get the bang for our buck of giving. If we give to a charity, of course we can. But if we're giving to, if I want to give to just you, Nick, so that you can go get some really cool surfboards, I don't get a tax benefit for that, but I do get the impact of going surfing with you and you get that gift. So it kind of comes down to that angle too. And then it's looking at, well, what kind of assets do you have for what's the best way to do giving?
Yeah.
Whether it be giving for a gift, just to give a gift, or taxes. And then there's also just control. Like, how do you feel about letting go control and letting other people be able to make choices with their own money?
Yeah.
And then of course there's cash flow. You want to make sure you're okay. And then there's just this little thing called family dynamics.
Just a little thing, right?
How are you going to handle that?
By the way,
Yeah, and that actually reminds me, like I know of a family where one of the family members needed help, and so
Mhm.
one of the parents gave a lump sum to help a person with like a home purchase, and
Nice.
then another a parent also helped, I think, support payments while they were getting on their feet. And it's like they could choose to make that even. I'm putting that in quotes, even,
Right,
because I
right.
think that's where family dynamics come in with
Mhm.
everyone else. Or they could just go, you know what? Those who need it get it, and those who don't need it don't. And you guys share the spoils of what's left over and anything in between. And I think that's got a good framework of those kind of 5 things, 6 things to think about as we talk today.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we overcomplicate it, right? Or we just stay stuck in like, oh, this is the way that it should be. But part of our job, as you know, is like, how do we expand the conversation? How do we flip the norms on their head? I think a lot of times, as an advisor, we get paid just to present people with options to say, hey, have you thought about this? Or here's another way you can accomplish that, but let's look at it differently and like, let's talk through this. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I know we laid out a bunch. Where should we start?
Yeah, whatever you want. I mean, I think we can go walk through maybe the frame and then just kind of chat it through. I mean, I guess if we keep thinking through that frame of like giving while we're alive or giving when we pass away, it's kind of like if you do it now, you get more benefit now, probably for how you feel about giving.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like if we kind of put it, if we kind of do a debate of both sides, which one do we do? Maybe we just think of it through that lens.
Hmm.
It's like if I choose to give now, I get to see the benefit of giving now.
Okay, so that's the interesting part is that I think a lot of people they never think about that, right? And
Hmm.
they, the book goes on to talk about memory dividends and how those compound, right? Because
Right.
as we get older, we're not going to be able to do the things physically that we once were able to do. Think about it as
Hmm.
like hiking, surfing, rock climbing, whatever it is. Um, but the stories, the memories, the experiences, those are often, worth more than their weight in gold. And those actually compound and those are what you end up sharing, at a funeral. Remember the time dad did this, or oh my goodness,
Hmm.
I couldn't believe we got stuck in that line, wherever, right? And so that idea that so many people often have of like, okay, I'm just going to give X amount of dollars, there it is, whatever's left over, spoils, so on and so forth. But this idea that this is the living dividend today that you get to experience and that grows. I think we often, sweep over way too often.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I fully agree. I mean, but if on the other side, if you don't give now, you give in the future, you're probably allowing the assets to grow to be greater dollar amounts for giving.
Right,
I
right.
think it, and you, so I guess the question is like, who are you giving to and will they appreciate it more now or more later? I think that's another frame to think about
Hmm.
as you're thinking about the two. Does that make sense?
Well, it
Because it's
does. It
like,
reminds me of like when I go shopping for somebody's birthday, right?
yeah,
And I'm like, oh, I think they would really love this. And it's from two different angles. Like either I know this person so well and I want to get them this gift because man, do I know them, or you know what, this looks cool to me and I'm hoping that I, hit a home run on maybe they'll share the same interests that I have.
yeah,
Right. And so it's kind of like what lens or what angle do you take that from? And so when you talk about like who is the gift for, how would that
uh-huh.
change or benefit their life? Like I could think of, you know, examples where clients are like, yeah, we probably have more than enough money, and our kids who are in their 30s, 40s, they're going to need it a lot more now than in their 70s. Right.
100%. I think of that right now. So, like, our sons are younger, right? They're 14 and 7.
Yeah.
But 20 years from now, they're going to be 27 and 34. They'll be at those ages where I was when I bought my first home.
Hmm.
And if they want to live around here, that'd be very hard to do on your own.
Absolutely.
It'd be very helpful to get a gift from a family member to help have a down payment on a home. I mean, and personally, like in our family, we were lucky enough to have some help like that when we bought our first home.
Yeah.
So I,
You
I
know,
can speak to both sides of how that's
right.
helpful.
I
Um,
think of even outside of a house down payment, I think of, my wife and I, well, she did all the work, but our son's one, right? We had our first kid, right? And this idea of like, ooh, what if one person was able to stay back? Maybe we don't need a house, but it'd sure be nice if we didn't have to have daycare or a babysitter. And my wife were able to now say, hey, we're a one household income family instead of two.
mhm.
Maybe we don't need that 20 years from now. And so it's just kind of flipping that dynamic and saying, well, when would this person, this recipient, actually need it most?
Totally. I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
And like, if, I mean, of course, it'd be nice to give my kids something when if I die when I'm in my 90, they'll
No,
be
of course. Yeah.
in their 60s, 70s. That's cool. But man, would it be cooler to help them get that house, in my opinion, in their 30s,
And
right?
then you get
Because
to see
that's,
that too, right?
yeah,
You're like, I actually think there's two recipients, right? And that's what we're getting at. You
yeah.
and them.
But I think I'm not, my thing is like, that's just my own thought on it. And everyone gets to have their own thought on it. And so
Right. Right.
they're either pulled toward that as I say it, or they're repelled by it.
There's
And
those
that's
dynamics
both,
again, right?
both answers are great. Right.
Correct. Yeah.
Um, I think for the control, there's like, do you want to have control? Obviously, you have more control just saying it gets passed at the end. There's one time that you give all the money, and there's really no administrative burden on your life to do that. And then if you want to give more while you're alive, well, there could be more administrative burden depending on what you're doing, right? So if you want to create a donor advised fund and give through that, that requires another account and you have to go log in and give funds. And there are specific instances where it might make sense to create like a charitable remainder trust, or there's other types of charitable trusts that can make sense for giving, that can make a lot of sense for families. And
But
it's really just a matter of figuring out what makes the most sense for you and what do you do?
right. And I look at asset types, oftentimes a lot of time we're working with clients who have 401ks and IRAs. They also probably own their own house. Maybe they have a brokerage account. And all of those have different rules attached to the taxation, the control, those types of things when it changes ownership.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we don't have time to dive into all of them today, but to your point, like if we own cash, that's pretty easy.
Yeah.
If it's appreciated securities and brokerage accounts, it usually does this thing called stepping up in
Oh, and we
basis.
like that.
So
Yeah.
long as we don't have a state taxes to go pay in the like thereafter. So we still step up in basis, but you just have to pay state taxes if it was above the state tax exclusion. And then you have the donor advised funds, which you can basically, like, I can go put a bunch of money in a donor advised fund and I can say, Nick is my successor of my donor advised fund. Now he has a fund of charitable funds to go give from for the rest of his life. And then, we've mentioned it before on the show, but like one of the ways that is great to give now while we're alive, if we want to give to charities, and we have a lot of IRA or 401k monies, qualified charitable donations,
Yeah.
what's called a QCD.
Mm-hmm.
It's an amazing way to give now. But so it doesn't necessarily have to be to family. It might be to your church or to a hospital or to whatever, whatever nonprofits call to you to go give. And the joy of giving now and giving dollars that are so helpful, versus giving, that same exact amount of money when you pass away, but no one's there to thank you. Man, it probably makes sense to give while we're alive, but
Absolutely.
just my own thought on it.
Absolutely. And I look at this as just yet another line item on your balance, on your budget, on your financial plan. So if you're listening to this and you're in your 40s and 50s, have the conversation. What's the benchmark? What's the mile marker we're trying to hit? It's retirement at this age. We could spend this much. Well, let's get a little more creative as well and say, hey, maybe gifting is important to me. So why are we not incorporating that now into our financial plan? All right. If it's like,
And making sure that it works for you, right? Because
exactly.
like something that you and I've looked at before is we'll have, this is a kind of table stakes for working with retirees. You'll have someone who has a fairly large IRA, and they do traditional, standardized itemized deductions.
Yep.
They're not getting big deductions because they don't have a lot of mortgage interest anymore, and they don't have a lot of state income tax to pay. So they're just doing that, but they love giving. And so they give through their QCD, that qualified charitable donation, every year. And what does that do for them? It helps them lower the amount of taxes that they're paying on their tax bill. It keeps more money in their brokerage account. So that gets the step up in basis for the kids. It also makes it so that they don't have to hopefully pay as much in current taxes in what's called IRMA, which is basically how much do I pay in Medicare, and the like. So it's just a really smart way to think about giving if you want to give. And why not give while you're alive and make it so
Totally.
you pay a little bit less every year right now?
Yeah. And, we briefly touched on it earlier, but this idea of like, ooh, that sounds like such a good idea, Scott. But man, maybe we're listening to this in our 50s or 60s and like retirement's just around the corner. We just started. And it's like, well, I need to make sure, oxygen mask analogy, that we have enough for ourselves, and then we'll get
Yeah.
into that. Right. But this idea that like So many times we know this as retirement planners, depending on the size of your nest egg. When we get through those early spending years in retirement, and fellow nerd and researcher and advisor Michael Kitces talks about the go, slow go, no go too
Mm-hmm.
often. I'm sure you could list a handful of stories and client examples right now of seeing clients when they have that first required minimum distribution.
Mm-hmm.
Their spending looks so different, Scott, in their 70s than it did in their 50s and 60s. And
Yeah.
now, and we've had a really strong bull market to benefit from, but
Mm-hmm.
I could think of several clients this last past year that spent everything that they could think of, and their accounts still grew. And they got to a point where like the account's growing faster than they could possibly spend it. And so this idea
Yeah.
of how could we give to have a bigger legacy, a purpose, so on and so forth, so long as it aligns with what you want to have in your plan.
Agreed. And I think that really just comes down to helping them become comfortable. We can have
Right.
another episode on withdrawal
Absolutely.
strategies and the like. I'm a huge fan of turning on a paycheck for clients from their portfolios so they
Yep.
don't have to worry about the taxes and worry about all the things. That's
Yeah.
our job. Their job is just to have money hit their bank account and go spend it, right? Because that's the way it should be. And then ideally, if they can give the charity and the like, that's amazing as well. The other example that I see commonly is we'll have clients who come from tech and biotech,
Hmm.
and so they'll have low basis stock and it'll be fairly concentrated.
Yep.
And so one of the ways that we'll give away money is we will go we'll go give, we won't convert, I should say we will send a donor advised fund those shares. And by doing that, it helps give us a really nice deduction on our tax return in the year that we did that giving. But now we get to give those shares over the rest of our life. So we don't have to go give it away the year we make a big contribution. We can do it over the rest of our life.
No, absolutely. I love that too, because it's like, let's not give with cash, right? Well, that's that low basis stock that we're going to be, I'm not going to say penalized, but we're going to be taxed when we take it out otherwise. Like, let's get strategic and intentional and deliberate about where we choose to give from. And then, likely, with a lot of those clients in that particular industry, maybe we're also accomplishing a goal of, you know, deleveraging or diversifying our portfolio even further when we have those sizable gains from our company stock, right?
Oh, 100%. Because the point that you're making is really smart, right? So if you go and make this contribution to your donor advised fund, now you're going to get to offset all of those, all of that deduction exists. So if we just take that deduction and we offset it with more sales so that you end up being net neutral for that tax year, you just really reduced your full position in that. Because one of the things we always worry about is concentration risk for clients.
Absolutely.
It's one of the most dangerous positions you can put yourself in
Hmm.
when it comes to investing in retirement.
Yeah. Yeah. So much here, right?
Yes.
We could have, I feel like another 5 episodes on this, but just like the idea though of at least having the conversation, saying the way that it's always been done doesn't have to be done that way, and being able to present options and say, hey, does this work for our plan? What does this look like? This idea of thinking who that end beneficiary or recipient's going to be, what's going on in their life, whether it's a charity, a family member, a friend, so on and so forth, and saying, hey, this actually giving that person, that entity, does that help more today, right?
Yeah. So it's like, who would you give to your point? How would you give it? And then how's the rest of the family getting involved?
Yeah.
If you're worried about equalization, how will you do so? Like,
Yeah.
for instance, the family that I know that did the contribution to a family member for a home purchase.
Hmm.
Well, when it's time to settle out an estate, that's accounted for in the equalization, right? That's
Absolutely.
okay. No,
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
Um, totally doable.
But
But
I don't
then,
think people know that, sometimes where it's like, and I understand this from the parental dynamics where it's like, hey, it has to be equal. And I totally respect that. But just the idea of, oh, hold on, let's go back to the estate plan real quick. We'll erase it in pencil. Here we go. And all of a sudden now it comes out the wash saying, oh, this person got this at this age. So then let's go ahead and adjust it to make sure that it's still nets out. Pretty easy.
exactly. But then
Yeah.
I think the thing that it ends with is like, as you get a sense of who are those people, how would you want to help them? Obviously, work with your advisor. Can we do these things now
Absolutely.
or later?
Yes.
But then the question for you ultimately is, when do you want to do it? And I did think of the Bon Jovi song "Dead or Alive." It's like, do I want to do it now or do I want to do it later? And
Absolutely.
if for me personally, I think I would want to choose to do things sooner rather than later. But you get to decide, would you want to do it when you're today or when you pass away. But remember, there's also all the area in between. It's not to say that you have to choose one or the other. Just make a choice about what you think you want to do and then take the next action toward doing it.
Hmm. And like we remind you so many times on these episodes, just incorporate into your plan. Have the conversation.
Yeah.
Whether it's budgeting at the beginning of the year, looking at taxes throughout the year. Now we have one more thing to add, because that which gets written down and recorded ends up getting done. And so this idea of like, let's put this into the plan, have the conversation today, be intentional, and then we set it as one of our goals.
Absolutely. All right, man. Well, until next time.
All right, Scott. Enjoy Hawaii.
See ya.
See ya.